Hello, I want to welcome everyone to the Power of Our Story. And today we have one of our own on the Power of Our Story, Janet Wiszowaty. Janet is a powerful advocate for our veterans and first responders. She is an author. She wrote The Year the World Paused. She's an international speaker. She's a life coach. She's a chief connector. And she's a certified Canfield Success Principles trainer. So one thing that is a huge part of her life is her time being an emergency police dispatcher. She did that for 36 years, but she has been in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police community for 49 years because she was a spouse of a law enforcement officer with the RCMP. So I would just love to introduce our friend Janet, just a very loved person in the Power of Our Story community. So Janet, welcome.
Thank you, guys. I'm honored to be sharing my passion and the support of this community. It's interesting in our communities of veterans and first responders, when we retire or leave, there's such a void that our family has sort of been disconnected. I don't know whether it's a written law that you don't stay connected to active and retired. It's challenging at times. So this community, the Power of Our Story, has been a huge gift to me. So I thank you. And today I'm going to share the art of practicing gratitude, because without gratitude, life can be pretty dull. And with gratitude, we don't know where it'll go. And in light of what's happening in our society right now against our vets and our first responders, I was thinking of the presentation today, and the song that kept going through my head was from when I was in school, in Bible study as a kid, in Sunday school, and it's count our blessings, right? Count your blessings one by one. And it's just been playing in my head today as I think of how grateful I am for my community, especially in light of what's happening right now in Canada and the United States. So I have a presentation. I'm going to share some slides, and then we'll have a conversation after. And just a minute. I have to bring it back up. It was here a minute ago. Oh, I should have done. There it is. And can you see it?
Yes, we can see it. I don't know if you saw me nodding, but yes.
There.
Perfect.
So one of the things when I started doing some of my presentations, because when I'm passionate about something, I start to write about it. And then I was asked to share this with a library, actually, for their for Friends of the Library. And so I started thinking about gratitude. What is gratitude, right? How do you define it? Like, we all are grateful for something, but really, how do we define it? And so I started looking at the definitions. So the quality of being thankful, readiness to show appreciation for, and to return kindness. And you know what? It doesn't have to cost you anything, right? Just to smile at somebody, or open a door, or say to someone that's serving you, have a great day and thank you. And you guys, I don't have to explain this, but this is, sometimes we need to re-look up a definition of something because it's been part of our life, but I think sometimes the translation gets lost, or the meaning gets lost sometimes. So I've written a little bit about myself here. Oops. My husband took this picture the day we were at the airport waiting to fly to France. Do you think I'm excited, you guys? I was very grateful to the people that invited us to house it, and that they trusted us with all their animals, because they had a lot, and it was wonderful. And so I'm a mother, grandmother, wife, great grandmother now of a 2-year-old. And the part of what I'm very proud of is I retired from a career of the emergency police dispatcher, but I learned to reinvent myself after a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress in 2005. My passion is to share the tools that I learned along my journey, because we all heal differently and we all learn differently. So I love this picture. I have no idea who did it. I saw it on Facebook one time and I had to copy it. So I hope to not offend anybody for showing it, but whoever did it, I'm grateful, because it's in the moment, like, this reminds me of a baby laughing, like that pure laughter, that pure joy, where there's no filters. And I could just imagine myself doing this with a friend. I took this picture at Bouchard Gardens on Vancouver Island. This used to be a quarry. It's full of beautiful flowers. If you ever make it up there, you have to go to see it. It's just outside of Victoria, British Columbia, on Vancouver Island. But I saw this and this hole, and it's like, we see things around us, but then all of a sudden there's little views that we don't always see, and that there's more out in our world than what we actually see. And so this reminds me of like a window to another world. And that's where I want to strive to be as big as I can in the worlds that I can't see yet. These are 2 books, and I talk about journaling, but this one is in how we can utilize journaling, but about gratitude. I'm part of this book, Live in Gratitude Daily. In the first edition, I put 2 entries in, and then the second edition, I had 4. There is no year on that. It's 365 days, and there's a statement, a quote, a little bit of a story at the top of each page, and it's just a prompt, but you can start anywhere. And for me, linear, like start from the beginning and go to the end, is something that I would normally do. But this one, you can go to the date, and if you miss a couple of days, go to the next date, and you haven't messed up anything. If anybody's seen The Secret or heard about The Secret with Joe Vitale and Jack Canfield and a whole bunch of other, Lisa Nichols, I found this little journal in a secondhand bookstore for $7. Nobody had written in it. And it's my gratitude journal. And it's not very big. And sometimes it has quotes in it. But on one side, I write what I'm grateful for today. And on this other side, I write for what I'm grateful for in the future, but in present tense. And it's really cool to read back on it and realize that there's so much things that happen to continue to be grateful for. One example is my nephew and his wife were expecting a baby, and there had been some tests, and there was some concern there might be a genetic problem, and she might need surgery and challenges when she was born. And you know what? I had put in there that I was so happy and grateful that she was a nice, healthy baby. And I think she, I don't know, 8 or 9 now, and she is a beautiful, beautiful, healthy child. So, you know what? God works in mysterious ways, and sometimes we don't know how or why, but there's no rhyme or reason what we can ask for, right? 365 thank yous. I don't know if you've heard about John Krellick, but he was a lawyer that was down on his luck, and he was soon to go bankrupt if something didn't change. And this is such a beautiful story. In what he started doing, a girlfriend he had split up with gave him a card, gave him a thank you card for, he'd given her a Christmas present or something, or she'd get whatever. And it started with a card. It started with a thank you card. And he thought, well, I'm not doing anything in my business right now. And it's not doing. So he started going through his files and sending thank you notes to his former clients. And so this story is about how it changed his life. So much like Natalie's, right? And I'll get to that later. I've got hers there too. But I believe, if you look him up, I believe he's a judge now. But it totally turned his life around. And the other book, it's by him as well, A Simple Act of Gratitude. When I was cleaning out my mom's apartment after she'd gone into her new home in the seniors, this book was in her stuff. So of course I had to get it. Okay, Mom, I'm taking this book. So it's part of my gratitude repertoire now. This book was also in my mom's, and how to give joy and receive joy every day of your life. And it's so true. I know all of you here, and myself included, like the more I can give or do something for somebody else, that feeds my soul. Like, I don't expect anything back because I've already been the gift of giving. And that's, to me, is so powerful. And so my kids have grown up with this, my grandkids, because it's not a thing you do alone. It's infectious, right? You show an example, like, this gives me so much joy. Do you want to join me in doing this? And I have a project I'm doing now that gives me so much joy. And it's being part of a project of giving, and I love it. So this was interesting. I was on a call one time, and this woman showed this card. Well, she ended up sending it to me when I asked her, because it's from Send Out Cards. And so she sends it to different people, different clients, but you open it, like you see, it's threefold, and you can write what you're grateful for in it. And that's a card she sent. We got to talk to Natalie, right? She has to do something. And because it just fits in so much with what Natalie's doing as well, because we need to remember, and sometimes when life isn't going well, to pick up a pen and paper and write what you're grateful for. We can always find something we're grateful for. And I tell you guys, the thing I'm most grateful for, besides breathing, is hot water. Growing up in a house that had only cold water that we had to heat and share a bath with, I love hot water and so grateful to have hot water. So, and here's our Natalie, right? I absolutely love what Natalie is doing, and she's changing so many lives with her love notes. And again, because of what's been happening recently against our police officers and the number we're losing, I'm having her join me on the 29th of October on a Zoom call, and she's going to share about love notes. And I'm bringing a community together so we can write love notes in a virtual community to either send to a community that we know is hurting, or to hand out like Natalie does. And she does both, right? And you have to read her LinkedIn post today, because it's so cute, about about Chris handing someone a love note from her. And the energy around the giving and the love notes, or just the journaling in itself, or the words that you say. Has anybody heard of Dr. Emoto and his study, his experiment? Because Dr. Emoto started working around, he'd freeze water and he'd look at it and he'd see the crystals or how they are. And some were dark and some were beautiful. So what he started doing, and I'm just using my words here, is that he'd talk to, like people say, like you talk to your plants and love your plants, they're going to thrive. Well, he was experimenting a plant in a positive atmosphere and one in a negative, and the one in the negative died. And then he started, he would tape like love on a bottle of water and freeze it, and then look under a microscope, and it's like a snowflake. It's these beautiful, beautiful crystals. And so when you think about that, the energy, because we're all made up of energy, the energy we bring into a room, and you talk to the first responders, nurses, doctors, in the military, when they pay attention to their gut or their emotions, they will sense what they're going into. They will sense the negative. They will sense, okay, caution here, whatever. And sometimes it's hard to explain to people who don't have that or aren't put in that situation. We all have it. And so Dr. Emoto did it so that you can see how it shows. But there were also in orphanages of war-torn countries, the babies that weren't held and cuddled and that grew up so differently, and some died because there was no human interaction or touch. So this is the power of this. So I highly recommend have a look at, see what he's done, because he's done powerful work. And it's a real teaching for all of us on how we show up or act around other people. Louise Hay, I don't know whether you've ever heard of Louise Hay. She wrote the book, You Can Heal Your Life. She, you might know her as Hay House Publishing. Now, in her 20s, 30s, I can't remember what era that was, that she was diagnosed with terminal cancer and started doing more holistic work. The result being You Can Heal Your Life. And in the center of that book, you open it up and she doesn't say diseases, it's dis-ease in a certain part of your body. So my mom had cancer when I was 12. And so when I found this book, or I was referred to me, actually, I was having health issues and this book was referred to me. I gave my mom a copy and she read it. And cancer is, and her definition, Louise Hay's, a deep hurt eating away at oneself. And my mom said, that's so true. And she went back to her growing up and what happened in her youth. And that's continued into her adult life with her mother. And so, and Louise Hay was one of the first, probably the first person that down, I'm pretty sure she was in San Francisco when the AIDS epidemic, pandemic, whatever you want to call it, was going on. She would go and sit in groups that had the AIDS and just love and meditate and just be there for them. Not like, I think that we treated a lot of them like the in Jesus' time with the, help me out here, guys, the when their body, pardon?
The lepers?
Yes, thank you. And they were treated like that. They were ostracized and stuff, where she brought that love And like, I see you, you know, if somebody's hurting and you just walk by them and that, but if you just looked and says, I see you, you know, it gives such a different energy. And she went on to found Hay House Publishing at 60 and died a few years ago at 90 something. And so she's got lots more books out there. Her legacy of Hay House Publishing is still there and still thriving. But she's a role model for me. An amazing, amazing woman. Gratitude can transform any day, right? Into a Thanksgiving. And, you know, we have this ability as human beings to turn anything negative into a learning and a blessing, but just ordinary things. Like if I can't find my keys and I find them, I just go say thank you. You know, it doesn't cost anybody anything, but there's the energy around it just changes your state. And so that's why I love sharing this, because, you know, I wasn't always positive. You know, I with the best of them would sit with the other police officers' wives and mothers and that, and, you know, complain about our husbands or complain about something else. And, you know, being on the other side of that, knowing how unhealthy that was, but I was in my 20s with a bunch, you know, 2 kids. But then if you're open, your world can change to something that you could never even have imagined. I could never have imagined then what my life would be today. And it's all because I'm grateful to the people that I connected with, I came into, and just the different graces and blessings of other people that brought me to this place. And the power of our story is definitely at the top of the list. So, and Louise Hay, this anybody wants it, I can send it out. She does, it is on internet. But if you guys are okay, I'd like to read it. So the gratitude prayer by Louise Hay. Dear ones, deep at the center of my being, there is an infinite well of gratitude. I now allow this gratitude to fill my heart, my body, my mind, my consciousness, my very being. This gratitude radiates out from me in all directions, touching everything in my world, and returns to me as more to be grateful for. The more gratitude I feel, the more I am aware that the supply is endless. The use of gratitude makes me feel good. It is an expression of my inner joy. It is a warm fuzzy in my life. I am grateful for myself and for my body. I am grateful for my ability to see and hear, feel and touch. I am grateful for my home, and I take loving care of it. I'm grateful for my family and friends, and I rejoice in their company. I'm grateful for my work, and I give it my best at all times. I'm grateful for my talents and abilities, and I continually express them in ways that are fulfilling. I am grateful for my income. I know that I prosper wherever I turn. I am grateful for all my past experiences, for I know that they are part of my soul's growth. I am grateful for all of nature, and I am respectful for every living thing. I am grateful for today, and I'm grateful for tomorrow, for all the tomorrows that come. Thank you.
Janet, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. I'm just putting the view back on standard. We'll get everybody back on this picture here. Yeah, gosh, what a great presentation. I don't know about you, Scott and Paul, but I just felt all mushy and happy, and that was wonderful. Thank you, Janet.
Yeah.
That was great. I had an experience last night where I had set my mind to, in case I maybe met some people from my past. There's certain situations that I've just learned from. I have a different perspective on certain things that happen. And I've always wanted to be ready to see some of these people in this certain arena, and just really prepared my heart for gratitude for all the lessons that I was able to learn that brought me to the place that I am now. And I actually saw a few of them last night, and it went beautifully. I got to really share the love and appreciation that I have for them, and they may not have thought that I felt that way. So it was really wonderful. I felt like more little loose ends from the past were tied with appreciation, with love. And this is kind of what this presentation brought up, is how powerfully life-changing gratitude is in, all different situations. So thank you.
I'm glad you brought that up because I have I usually have things I can hold up in that. But I have done a form and it's 31 days of gratitude. And what you do is you write somebody's name down each day, or you can do it all at once, whatever. And you put on that piece of paper what you're grateful to them for. And then you tick it when you mail it. And I mean, mail it, not an email, but physically mail it. So I'll send you each a copy if you want of the PDF, and free to share it anytime. But what I did a presentation, just a luncheon, and I handed these sheets out. And this woman contacted me later, and she said, "You have no idea how this has changed my life." She says, "I was an alcoholic. I'm sober now, so a recovering alcoholic. And I know that there's so many things that I did, but I have resentments around other things as well. And I chose to send some of those people a gratitude note, a thank you note, for something that I could remember that was positive that happened in our life." She says, "Unbelievable." And she said, and I did it all. Well, I went and bought like 31 cards. I didn't send them each day. I'd sit down and write them, and then I'd go mail them. And I did that over the period of the month. And she said, "I was so surprised at the messages I got back, because, people don't always remember what happened. And you're carrying that around in you to think this happened, or that, they're angry at me for something, or that, but it could have been a moment thing and they're not even thinking about it anymore, but you've carried it for years." So in this work that I'm striving to do, is to show how life can be different, through the journaling, through the conversations, through our gratitudes, but by serving. And there's so much more that makes us who we are. And you know what? We have an infinite ability to grow and change a life. I did a presentation someplace else years ago, and the night before, they were having an event. They had a speaker, and we were all at tables, and he says, "Okay, I want you guys to, at your table, here's a question, and talk about it, and an exercise." So less than an hour at a table by ourselves. So we moved over to this other table, and this woman says, "Oh, I would love to do this," and she liked to dance, and I don't know what she did. So anyhow, it was just at a time that a friend of mine, somebody I'd been on a program with, had, her singing was beautiful. And one of them is I Love My Body. That's her song. I love my body, and and stuff like that. And her name is Jana Stanfield. If you ever can find her music, it is wonderful music. Like, how on PBS you can sign up to donate every week or something. And so she's got a whole song around pledging and not sending her money. And it's just real life stuff. And so I shared this with this young woman and never thought any more of it, right? And this is like years ago, before Facebook was even what it is today. And she found me on Facebook about 6 months later, and she says, "What you said to me that night changed my life." But we don't always remember what we said. And I believe it's divine. Like, sometimes words come to us, or we say something to somebody and we have no idea where it came from. But it was meant for them to hear. And if somebody had asked me what I said, I don't remember, because it wasn't for me to hear. I was just the vessel, or the microphone, or the transmitter, whatever you want to say. Like our Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way, right? Our journaling is our transmitter, but our artist date with ourselves is the receiver. And so sometimes we're the transmitter and sometimes we're the receiver. So, as you can tell, I'm passionate about this subject and so many others, probably.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Janet. Love it. Paul or Scott, do you have any comments or questions?
Hey, sir. I'll go ahead and jump in here. Janet, thank you for your wisdom today. I was thinking about so many things, because it's so relatable. And when you were reading that woman's
The prayer.
Yeah, she covered everything. I think it's just amazing, and it's so important. And as you were reading that, some of the things I thought about was, boy, how blessed and how grateful we should be, because we're humans.
Yeah.
We could have been born a fly and lived a couple days life, and then that's it. Who knows? But we're these amazing organisms that have the life we have, the freedom, and then on top of that, look at where we live. We as a human, where do we live? We live in really nice places. God has blessed us. And then, so what do we do with that? It's easy to get sometimes bogged down in the weight of your world and your maybe first world problems compared to a lot of third world problems, where I'm going with that. And then, to be aware of that. And then the writing down of things, I think it's so important for me, going through school. When I would study, I would sit down and I would write out, because if I took the time to write it out, somehow that got into my mind and it stayed with me, because there's emotion involved there. You're seeing what you're writing, and when you're writing it, maybe it's a little slower than reading, so you really take that in. So the power of the journaling, I think, is tremendous, because you can also come back to it as well, which is part of, I guess, why you're doing that. The mindset of gratefulness, I think, is so powerful, because it does work both ways, right? Because sometimes you're the person that's sending it, but then you also have to be good at receiving it.
Yes.
And I think we need to give ourselves some grace on the receiving end of that, of being grateful, learning how to be grateful, because I think people want to, maybe more than they do, want to be able to reach out but they're afraid because sometimes they're not sure how they're going to be received. And if you're not receptive to it, that could, maybe put that person off. And so you have to be mindful of that too, but just being willing to accept that, in the, I'm kind of going off on a couple of tangents, but in the military, it's about we, right? It's not about it's about the team. And when you transition out, a lot of times folks that served and, I'm sure with first responders, talking about yourself and being comfortable with that is a very different thing, because you're used to the we thing. And you don't necessarily put yourself first. But on the receiving end of gratitude, you have to think of it that way, about opening up to be able to receive that for yourself because you need it, and then be able to pass it on. I don't know whether that makes any sense, but
Total sense, really.
yeah, but yeah, thank you for the work you're doing here and for what you've added to the power of our story. It's a very multi-dimensional group of folks we have here, and the value that comes with this is tremendous.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, thank you.
To Scott's comment, I think one of the things that we sometimes have difficulty with is understanding that we have to meet people where they are, not where we are. And sometimes that's a place that we're not terribly comfortable with, but if we're going to communicate with them effectively, that's something that we have to do. And I'm going to stand up and I'm going to show you a poster that is on the entry door to my prosthodontist office down in La Jolla, because it tells me that he really understands life, not just dentistry. And this is what it says. And you're seeing it backwards, so
No,
I'm gonna
no,
read
but
it.
See it?
no, we can see it the proper way.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
good.
Welcome. Do you want me to read it, Paul?
Yeah, go ahead.
Welcome. Please take responsibility for the energy you bring into the space. Your words matter. Your behaviors matter. Our patients and our teams matter. Take a slow breath and make sure your energy is in a positive space before entering. Thank you. Oh, I love that.
I think
Yeah,
that
that's
should
awesome.
be
I
handed
made a
out
comment.
every.
I made a comment to my doctor about it. And so what did he do? He ordered a copy for me.
Oh,
So
Oh, nice.
that's how I got that. And so I'm going to engrave a wooden plaque that is smaller and appropriate and put it on my front door of my home.
oh, I love
And if anybody else wants one, I'm happy to do it for them. And I'll just
I'll
finish it
pick
in
mine up
varnish.
personally, okay?
Sold.
Oh, that's good.
Many
But-
years
but-
ago, I was cross stitching. I learned to cross stitch. And the very first one I did was of a dove, and it says, "Peace to all who enter here." And that's at our front door.
Love it.
Well, it's when you see something like that, particularly in a commercial enterprise, that is an amazing level of leadership, because it is setting the tone for everything that occurs on the inside of that door.
Yeah.
And when I walk in there, those girls that work there are so helpful and so cheerful and so kind. And Monica, the office manager, said to me one day, well, the reason we're that way is because Dr. Picklick pays us to be that way, to be kind and helpful. And I said, that's wonderful. And I do it for free because I'm retired. And she just stood there with her mouth hanging open.
I mean, you don't get paid to be kind, Paul?
Not as far as I know. I haven't seen any effect in my bank balance, but I get paid in lots of other ways, trust me.
Yeah,
And some of those ways
you're
are a whole lot more
investing-
valuable than money.
I get
Paul.
it. I'm with you.
Paul, you're investing, your kindness is being stored in the next version as we leave this life, right?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
The good news for me is that I feel that I do not have to earn my way, that I have been redeemed and forgiven. And that's what's required of me, and then to follow the gospel as it's been taught. And I try to reflect that in what I do and what I say. And I am by no means perfect. And you can take that to the bank. but that's what I try to do on a daily basis. And I think it's one of the reasons that my wife and I have such a strong relationship. It's almost spiritual, and we're just grateful for it. So,
Paul, you're an incredible communicator too. I mean, you can tell, that you really think about what it is you're going to say. And, Janice talked about how words are important. And I think that it's so true. And another thing I liked about what she said is that often that, she looks up words, goes to the definition of a word. I do the same thing. I think words are so important. And then paying attention to the order of words in a sentence too. And, because sometimes you miss that. And it's important because words mean things. And if you're going to communicate something and it's important, then you want to get it right. And I can tell that you're very thoughtful along that, along that line. And one other thing real quick, kind of getting back to the topic here, is I think we have a generation more so than maybe in years that doesn't understand gratitude because it hasn't maybe been taught in the home, and that civility is something that we have really lost a lot of in our culture. You'll go out to a restaurant and you have young kids and the table next to you, or a bunch of folks that are just dropping F-bombs and they're loud, and you approach them and they tell you to blank off, and it's just like, oh my goodness, where have we gone? And I think we have to relearn things. And so absolutely relearning, well, what is gratitude? What does that word mean? How do we put it into practice? How does it become part of our life? How do we share that with others? I think this is something that is absolutely needed. And maybe, us folks that are older, maybe that's part of what we should do in life is help people in that way, help them to see the importance of that. We don't have to be in their face about it, but if you present it in such a way, and the gratitude that comes with that, I think it's maybe a little easier for folks to take a second and grasp, just like that nice note that your doctor has on his door, because it causes you to take that pause and to think.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that you get a lot of joy out of sharing with other people, and it's to your issue, Don Scott. It is an issue of meeting them where they are, and when you're like you described in the restaurant and all the bad behavior and uncivility and all of the rest of that, but it is how you approach them and what you have to offer. And there are people that will go around offering features all day long. But the real value is in offering benefits. When people can see the benefits to themselves, they tend to buy in a whole lot better than they do if they know the tire pressure on their left front wheel. You know?
I think
So-
that one of the things that is we teach our children, right? They're always watching us. We were had the fortune, sadly because of an incident that happened, but we raised 3 of our grandchildren from an early age, just before 3, 5, and 6, when they came to live with us, and they lived with us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 2.5 years. But one practice that we started doing was whenever possible, and when somebody wasn't working shift work, whatever, but we tried to all sit down for supper together. And they each had to tell us, we each had to share 3 things they were grateful for that day. And our little 3-year-old, I'm grateful, Grandma, for the food. You good cook, you know. But it shows up. When he was 4, I was taking him to play school, and it was Christmas, and I knew his little concert was coming up. And I dropped him off at play school, and I went home. We just lived around the corner, and I came back, and all these parents are dressed up and leaving. And I had the wrong day. And I said to him, I says, Tristan, Grandma's so sorry. She says, that's okay, Grandma. I still love you.
Oh.
You know, young children, we need to listen to them more too. But really listen. What are they repeating back? What are they, when they're playing, what are they saying? You know what they're seeing by observing them.
And what a great habit to get kids into at that stage of their life. Because by the time they're 7, they're starting to drift off a little bit from that. But if you have them in that habit, that will probably stay with them for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And
but again, they learn, because my grandson, my older grandson, when he was about 16, and I don't know, they weren't living with us then, but they were up visiting, and I forget, he said something to me, and my husband was in the other room, and he heard it, and he came around the corner, and he says, don't you ever, ever, ever speak to your grandmother like that again. And he never did. And he treats people, especially women, because lots of men don't treat women kindly, but he learned from his grandfather that he needs to show respect. He may not agree with something, but respect is expected.
Yeah, and Les wasn't looking for agreement at all. He was looking for development, and that's what he got.
Well, in protection of me, like he,
Well, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let's see, when you teach your kids to understand that gender is important, and by the way, there are only 2. You can take the rest of them and just wash them down the sidewalk. But when they understand the importance of gender, and they understand the importance of how you treat women or men, then they begin to see value in the opposite sex. And I'm not speaking of lust here, I'm speaking of what that person can do to share with you that another guy might not be able to, because they have a different frame of reference for something. And I think that's pretty powerful as well. And so I appreciate people that do that. And unfortunately, we have gotten into a situation where our children, or in my case, my great grandchildren, are exposed to indoctrination rather than education. They have all been pulled out of public school,
Mm.
and it's turning me into poverty, but I would rather pay for their education in a school that I know is teaching what is appropriate and actually teaching something, than to have them be indoctrinated with terms of race or gender or any of the rest of that. It's just identity politics being drilled down to the 5th grade, and it's just inappropriate.
But here, then the gratitude of being able to do that for them,
Oh
right?
yeah, I have no reservations about it.
Yeah,
I just know what it's doing to my bank account.
yeah. But for us, we invested in our children and our grandchildren. And believe me, guys, the return hasn't been so great. But I'm hoping it is when I have to be taken care of in my old age. Then I'm expecting the return to be big. So on that note, you guys, I get to go and see my 2-year-old great grandson today. So I'm so excited to see him and spend time with him.
That is wonderful.
Mhm.
Well,
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Janet, thank you. Thank you so much. That was really, I think again, having it, we become like who we hang around with. And I think about all the people that have been on the Power of Our Story, like you all, like I feel like constantly there's a stream of hope and gratitude and truth and care and genuineness. Like I feel like it's drawing the cream of the crop of the best of people. And constantly, when we're constantly hearing it and we're constantly seeing it modeled out on, like even Janet, you and Natalie getting together and thinking, you know what, we're going to do this. And, Paul went and visited G, and because his wife had surgery, I heard about that. And then, Scott being willing to have all these people come on and share how they transitioned successfully. Again, it's just all part of this beautiful pie, and to constantly have and be reminded and hear the words and to see it. It's a wonderful thing to be surrounded by. And I think this, again, was just such a powerful talk. And I just want to thank you again, Janet, and thank you, Scott and Paul, for your very thoughtful comments also. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for being
What
here.
what you're describing, Sarah, is the law of affinity. And the law of affinity says that we tend to gravitate toward people that share our values. And here we are.
I love
And not
that.
exclusively either. There's a bunch more, but the point is that
Anymore. Yes.
yeah.
Scott's coffee is out. Time for
You caught
Does-
that, huh?
I did.
Does that mean the wine glass is coming or more coffee?
Yeah, that's later in the day.
Thank you guys, and have
all.
a wonderful weekend.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye
Thank
all.
you all.